You are listening to the Bright Life Podcast, all about ways to stay inspired, chase your dreams, and find more gratitude in the highs and lows of the journey. I'm your host, Jessica Johnson. I'm a business owner, a part-time digital nomad, a self-growth junkie, a believer in other big-hearted women, and am all about sharing tips, tricks, lessons learned, and encouragement so we can all live our biggest, brightest lives. You ready? Let's do this. Hey girl, welcome to today's episode. Now today I was thinking of some of you who I hear from in the DMs or in replies to emails who have this dream to start a side hustle or an online business or to travel to that place or to start a relationship, whatever your dream is, but you're afraid because you're focusing so much on that outcome and when the outcome will happen and whether the outcome you want will be the one that arises. And there's almost so much fear wrapped up in that you're missing out on the fact that this could either turn out to be a really great outcome or it could really still be a great story for your life. And so today I want to share what that means and how this little mantra, it's either a good story because it's a good outcome, or it's a good story because it's a great story to look back on later, how something like that can help you get out of your head around forcing a certain timeline or expectation and instead allow you to move in the direction of the life that is calling to you and just feel more open and at peace with whatever comes and however it unfolds and kind of get the feeling that this will be something that serves my life and my memories no matter what, so I might as well go for it. Okay, so here's why I was thinking about this. This has become a mantra that I've used ever since I was in my 20s going on dates. I mean, I would just kind of repeat to myself, it's either going to be a good time or a good story, meaning like it would be something that I could laugh about later with my girlfriends and probably one day find the humor in if it wasn't actually a good experience in the typical way you might think of it, like turning into a positive relationship or being a really magical date. And so I would go into these dates thinking it's either a good time or it's a good story. It's either a good time or a good story. It just helped me feel like I could handle it better either way. So maybe there's something in your life that you're resisting doing, whether it's signing up for a class, learning a language, working with a mentor, starting that business, where maybe it would be helpful to just release the pressure and think about it as it's either going to be a good time or a good story. And one day when you're old and gray, you'll look back and be so glad that you started that thing or you called your shot and you gave it an attempt, right? I also think about this, one of the other ways that I really saw this come to life was I used to do this thing. I've mentioned this on the podcast before and there's episodes on it. Could be something maybe you want to try. But I used to do one new thing every month. So I would choose something a little bit outside of my comfort zone, like rock climbing or kayaking or Bikram yoga. And I would go and every month I would make a practice of doing one new thing. And it really cultivated in me this spirit of life is an adventure. I can always find something new to try. It helped me feel really lit up and fulfilled because I always was creating new memories. And it also taught me how to handle fear and to just normalize that new experiences naturally bring about fear. And it doesn't mean that you shouldn't go for something because what always happened is they were still scary experiences, but they were also really good memories. So it was always worth what was on the other side. And I'll give you this example with Bikram yoga if you haven't heard it yet, or if you have, you can laugh and, commiserate with me again instead. But I was living in New York in my 20s, and the thing that I wanted to try that month was Bikram yoga, which is yoga where they turn up the temperature really high, something like 120 degrees Fahrenheit maybe. You might have to Google that, but something really, really hot where you're going to be sweating. And the only problem with my plan was I had scheduled this yoga class for what turned out to be a heat wave in New York City, which in the summers is already quite hot and quite humid. And so you pair that with a Bikram yoga class. And, I was in my 20s, so I probably didn't even really think through my breakfast like I do these days, where I'm like balance of fats, proteins, complex carbs. I probably had either nothing to eat or I had a really sugary, had a blood sugar spiking croissant or something like that. And so I went into this class probably very unprepared for what I should have been, going into a very physical activity. And it was so hot. It was so humid. I was so sweaty. I felt so weak during it that I actually started to see those stars, you get when you stand up really quickly. And then it got worse. Then the room started to go black around me. So my vision was just like decreasing. And I sat down. And the instructor had to pause the class, and she's so smart. She brought a sugar packet, so she poured it into some water, and everyone just paused and waited for me to sip my sugar water and get my blood sugar back up where it should be. And then throughout the class, I just had to take it really easy. So while everyone else they were these yoga pros doing all these fancy moves, I spent a lot of my time in Shavasana on the floor, where you just kind of like lay down and relax. I did a little child's pose, and so it ended up being quite embarrassing, but at the end of the day, something that now I laugh about as a good story, and probably some lessons learned on how to have a better breakfast or be a little more prepared going into physical activity. But things we learned, right? And we all have our 20s to look back on for those things. So that was another time it really ingrained this mantra in me. It's either a good time or a good story. If it was a good time, maybe it would have been something that I would have fallen in love with and made part of my routine and daily practice or weekly practice. But it wasn't, but it was still a good story. It was still something that I can look back on and be grateful that I tried. And when people talk about it and ask if I've done it, I'm like, yeah, let me tell you, I have. I'm grateful that I have this canvas of all kinds of memories and highs and lows, because that is the human experience, right? So I share that because there are times when maybe you will fall on your face or embarrass yourself or take a class and have to have the whole room around you pause so that you can acclimate when everyone else is a pro. But the thing is, it's okay. Like, you still get through those times and you will still be so glad that you did them for many reasons. For one, because it's a memory that you can then have in your memory bank for when you're cute little granny. But two, it's because you learn that you get through them. And three, one of the biggest drivers for me is that you no longer have to wonder what if. Like, what could have happened? You never know, but now you do. And so I want to share that with you because there may be things that are as small as, I've been wanting to take that class, or I've been wanting to go on that date. And there could be things as big that you're thinking about as like starting a business or a side hustle or announcing your new project online. And I know it can feel scary to think about doing that. I know it can feel scary to think about publicly failing. I was so scared before starting my business of what people would think, and what if I couldn't make ends meet, and what if I failed. And what I learned in hindsight is none of that really matters, because you will find a way. And even if you do quote unquote fail, which I did in many accounts as I was starting my first businesses and side hustles, you will still be so glad that you don't have to wonder what if. And what's more likely to happen is that you will get into it and you will find a way, and maybe things take longer than you expect them to, but does it really matter? You have the next 50, hopefully years, or 70 years of life. Does it really matter if it takes you a year to get your footing and to start having your business click? I know everyone wants the 3 months and it's magical, right? Or the first 6-figure year, but does it really matter if it takes you 3 years or even 5 years, and then you spend the rest of your life, the rest of those 45, 50, 75 years with more freedom, with more fulfillment, with making your 9-to-5 income and more as your own boss? It doesn't really matter at the end of the day, right? There's so many ways to make ends meet and to find the help that you need. And you can do that by taking a course. You can do that by getting a side hustle for your side hustle. You can do that by finding a mentor. You can do it by asking for help from friends and family with delegating. You can batch your work. There's so many ways to really be effective and to regain your footing and to make the most with whatever you have starting out. So I want to just share that with you. If you have been holding back and waiting on the sidelines, expecting the fear to go away first, the fear never really goes away. You can do something scared today, or you can do that same thing scared with that same level of fear 5 years from now. The only difference is the amount of time that you will have let pass you waiting on the sidelines and watching other people go for that thing that you want to do. And the other piece is like, things are changing all the time. So if you're waiting to get the hang of TikTok or Instagram, in 5 years, there's going to be another social media platform and you're going to have missed the Instagram or TikTok boat, or maybe it's another industry like copywriting that's what I teach. So things change all the time. So you want to get in now. You want to get in now while you can, and while you can learn and adapt and be ahead of the curve in 5 years when things evolve as they naturally do. But because you'll have gotten started, and because you'll have learned how to be a business owner, because you'll have learned the skills and services you need, it won't be as intimidating because you'll have been working with it for years at that point. So I'm throwing in a lot of examples, and I don't know which one's coming to mind most for you. But whatever it is, I would really encourage you, if you'd like to borrow that mantra, it's either a good time or a good story. And just to remember that the benefit is you won't have to wonder what if, that you'll get this another amazing story to add to your memory book for when you're old and gray and cute and wrinkly. And you'll also have gotten started, and it doesn't matter how long it will take to get to your outcome, because you will get there. But the only way you will is if you begin. And so whether it takes you 3 months or 1 year, 3 years, it doesn't really matter if eventually you get there. And the only way to get there is to get started today. Otherwise, you're just pushing back your timeline, right? So I want to share that with you in case you'd like to borrow it as well. The next time you're standing on a stage and your knees are shaking, or you're booking that flight ticket to somewhere you dreamed of that's on your bucket list, but you're also like, oh my gosh, can I go to this place? Or you're about to get out and date again, or you're about to start that side hustle or write your book or launch your podcast. It'll either be a good time or a good story, and you'll be so grateful that you did it regardless. You're stronger than you know. You can handle everything that comes. Day to day, it's not going to feel like so black and white. You'll be able to make pivots and iterations. And no matter how long it takes you, you'll have gotten started today. And so years from now, you'll look back and be so grateful you did, because you'll be further along than wherever you are at this starting point right now before you even have yet to begin. So get out there. It's a good time, or it's a good story. One day we can laugh about it together, all the ups and downs that it took to get there. And if you need someone in your corner, you know you can find me at Hi Jessica Johnson on Instagram. Feel free to send me a DM. Tell me what you're thinking about. I will be in your corner cheering for you, sharing your work, being the first to be so excited for you actually getting it out in the world. But so grateful that you're here, and I hope this helps you take that next step and live a life full of so many more adventures and memories and wonderful experiences. Thank you so much for listening in. If you love this episode, I have 2 things you are going to love. One is a free copywriter training full of 5 steps to build a profitable copywriting business as your own boss, no matter how much experience you're starting with. Copywriting is what took me from a 9-to-5 to freedom as my own boss, to travel, choose my schedule, replace my corporate income, and have time to work on creative projects like this podcast. And I'd love to give other women the same opportunity. Another, of course, is my book, Your Bright Life. You can find it on Amazon or Audible, where I narrate the audiobook. So it's kind of like a podcast in book form. All of these things are in the podcast show notes. Thank you again for listening. I appreciate you and your review so much. And I'll see you back here next Thursday.